Welcome back to episode 3 of the Within Reach podcast. Once again, thank you so much for being here. We are so excited for this episode. And the reason for that is because we are going to be going right into mindset and its correlation to your health and fitness. Now, in the last podcast, we did touch on this briefly, and we did discuss what we do at Within Reach and how we really feel and know that the mindset does correlate to the health and fitness. Anthony did a fantastic job at starting this conversation, but we know that there's a lot of you out there that still don't really understand it. And without knowledge, you don't have the power to make a change. So if you've been going around in circles, if you feel like you are lacking your confidence, frustrated, struggling with going round and round and round, and just sick and tired of it, this is the podcast for you, because today we are going to uncover exactly what is holding you back and what is going on in your mind and your body. So, Krystal, Anthony, welcome.
Hello,
welcome back.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome back to another podcast. Now, I am so excited for this topic, and I think it's safe to say that all three of us are very passionate about this. How are you guys feeling?
I'm very excited about mindset.
Pumped up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love mindset. So.
Cool. So let's start with like the very basics, because it's easy to throw words around and to just expect that people know. And what we're here to do is break this down for you very clearly. So starting from the very, very beginning, what is mindset?
Krystal, take it away.
You're the king of mindset here. Do you want to start with your definition?
Cool. Mindset. So I like to think of it as like, obviously we have our physical body. Now, for us to have a thought, for us to have a feeling in our body, they all come from our brain. And the way that neurology works is like firing and wiring, and Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time. But through my education, like mindset has to do with our thoughts, behaviors, patterns, beliefs. And these show up every day in life. So once we sort of are able to make more sense of our mindset, we are actually able to make more sense of our body and actually use that to help us move forward.
Yeah. And once we can identify all of that, we can start to take ownership of our actions, right?
Correct.
And see, guys, this is where the mindset actually correlates right into your health and fitness journey, because as we kind of just said, without having understanding of your actions and your behaviors, how are you supposed to take control? So we've identified what mindset is, and that's great. And that is the very physicality way, the physical way of explaining what a mindset is. But in terms of mindset, if we look at it from a positive or a negative space, what I want to know is, where does the negative come from, and why is it that negativity seems to be more apparent than positivity?
Yeah, great question. So I would say negativity starts, or where we learn those negative behaviors, patterns, thoughts, and beliefs are from the ages 0 to 7. So this is our most impressionable time of our brain developing. And during that stage, we basically pick up all the information that we can, because it's our learning phase. So whether it has to do with family, friends, parents, schooling, anything like that, we actually pick up on the behavioral patterns of everyone around us. And that is basically how then we create beliefs off the back of that. I sort of forgot the question.
That's fine. So why it is that negativity seems to be a lot more profound than positivity?
Yes. So we actually tend to have about 7 times as many negative thoughts as we do positive as well. So if you were to break that down, I would say like the average person has 7 to 10 thoughts a minute. In that minute, if 7 of them are negative or 7 of them are positive, then 7 times that are negative, it actually creates more and more pattern. So have I told you guys the snowboarding analogy?
No, but I'd love to hear it. And I'm sure the
love this
listeners
one.
will too.
So
So you've heard it?
Yeah,
Ooh.
on his coaching call.
What am I in for?
Yeah. So this is basically how negative thoughts or negative patterns are more profound in our mind. If we think of a snowy mountain and you have one snowboarder start to make an ingration, a pattern in the slope, then, you know, that starts to create, no, I'm going to start it again.
Awesome. Yeah, this is the uncut version.
Perfect. So when we think about like a snowy mountain, essentially we have a snowboarder going down on his own, and that starts to create an ingrained sort of pathway for the other snowboarders. As more and more snowboarders go down that path, then it becomes more ingrained. Therefore, it becomes harder to direct off that path. Okay, so if we're growing up from the ages 0 to 7 and we constantly hear some negative behaviors, thoughts, patterns, we're taking that path 90% of the time. To actually realize, number one is awareness. So awareness that our mind or our brain defaults to that path, and then actually starting to create behaviors to get off that path. Okay, so what that is neuropathways. Going back to sort of Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about it a lot. The more times that you fire that neuron, which essentially is that path, the stronger it becomes. So that's where habits actually come into it.
Yeah. And it's great that you've explained it that way. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a very visual person. So when you gave that snowboarding analogy, I could actually see it. And I'm thinking, yeah, that makes complete sense, because if you do have somebody start that path, regardless of whether it's you or not, or regardless of if you even realize that that's happening, it's going to be harder and harder to veer off the path. So if you're constantly in a state of negative thoughts, negative patterns, it's going to feel a real challenge to get out of that, but it's not impossible. It just takes awareness as the first step to change. Now, with that, you know, I think where we can kind of bring this into the fitness side of things is that you are all very aware that in order for you to change your life or change something in your life, you need to create a new habit. Nothing changes if nothing changes is definitely the phrase that I want to use here. And we can all relate to times where we've wanted to make a change, but there's been a bit of resistance and we can't work out why. So what Anthony's just done there is explained really clearly what's actually going on in your brain, because it's easy to float about around mindset, but when you realize that this is how the human body works, but it's not the way that it needs to stay, it's not permanent, you can start to notice that these patterns and behaviors are common and normal. But imagine if we were able to flip the coin and go the other direction. Yeah. So to kind of bring this into the fitness space, in order for you to make a change, as I said, you need to create new habits. You need to be able to create a new pattern and move forward to do things that actually serve where you want to be. Now, Krystal, what do you feel and believe allows people to take that first step, or to be able to recognize that they do need to make a change in order to move forward?
I'll say from my own experience that like people say to me, like, I'm a very positive person, which like I am, but what I want other people to know is that it's a choice. Those negative thoughts are there, they pop up, but I choose to look at the positive side of things and looking at ways to learn from every experience and forming those healthy habits. What was the question?
That was perfect as well.
Yeah,
So
I was like...
That answered it really well. So do you sort of mean like perspective of your thoughts as well?
Yeah. So through my own like health and fitness journey and learning so much about the mind and realizing that like we have, our subconscious and our conscious brain, and that there is the thinker and the observer in our brain. So that, like that fast thinking one, Thinking Fast and Slow is a great book for people out there wanting to learn more about the brain. And so when our brain is going, thinking all these thoughts going really fast, and just being able to take a step back and looking at that and being the observer of those thoughts.
Yeah. I love that. And again, this all relates really well, because then as you were talking, I kind of probed myself the question of, yeah, but how does somebody get there? How do they get to that point where they can make that change or choose different? And it all has to start with you making that initial choice to move forward. Because if you don't, you're choosing to stay where you are. Now, it is going to take time. You can't expect in one night to become a whole new person. But if you know that, again, going back to that analogy, I love that analogy of snowboarding down a hill. If you're constantly snowboarding down the same path and then you try to change the path, you need to be able to, again, slowly shift into that new path over and over and over again before it sticks. So I think this is where impatience comes in a lot too. First of all, again, if you're not aware, it can be really hard to understand why you can't just make a change in one night, and therefore it leaves people feeling really frustrated. When you can identify that this is normal and actually it is going to take time, and it is going to mean that you have to continue to go down the path no matter how many times you veer off the path, because one day it will just stick. That's the simplest way that you can start to make a change in terms of a choice. Where I want to go now, though, is actual things that you can do in order to create change. And the number one thing for me is environment. I think environment is massive. If you are wanting to make a change and you have a goal that you're trying to reach and it's just not happening for you, but you're not changing your environment, that can actually continue to ingrain the same pattern that you've always had. Let's use another analogy. You are used to driving past a local McDonald's on your way home from work, and every time you have a stressful day, you stop in at the drive-thru and you get a Happy Meal to cheer you up. And you do that over and over and over again. Eventually you're going to kind of get that thought or that feeling and correlate it straight to that Happy Meal. And then if you keep doing it, that becomes a pattern. So then how would we change that? Well, choose a new path home, change your environment. That's a really easy way for you to kind of visualize how, if you're driving in the car and you're constantly going past the McDonald's and you don't want to stop in there, you can choose to not take that path. So with that being said, what do you think are the biggest things that stop people from changing their environment?
I love that analogy you just used of the Maccas too. Another way, just before I answer that question, another way that I actually like to look at changing your environment can also be your internal environment. So this is something that I actually practice quite regularly, because I feel like there are specific times where internally I'll be focused on one thing and I'll actually be doing another thing, and they're both clashing together and I'm not actually being productive. So what I need to do is change my internal environment. Now, what this looks like is like doing 10 push-ups, or like doing something that's actually changing your state and mindset and making you know that you're capable of actually achieving a small thing in a short amount of time. Because that pattern that you create in that 5 to 10 seconds is like, I can do anything. And then you go back to that thing you're doing. So I regularly do like put on my favorite song, like move my body to that. Push-ups are just like nice and easy one, just like bust out as many as you can. Or yeah, basically anything that you want to do.
Yeah, so we've kind of clarified then that your environment doesn't have to just be external. It can be internal as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of why people don't change their environment though, or why it's challenging for people to change an environment,
is just, I would have to come back to awareness. They're not aware, which like in the past I wasn't aware either. But I would say they're not aware of that pattern that's currently playing out. And this is where like coaching comes in, because from an outsider's perspective, if you're doing something all the time, we're like, hold on, why are you doing that? And then the question why is actually so powerful. If you start going through your day and you actually ask yourself the question, why am I doing this right now? Then that self-thought process of why is going to be really powerful, because you're answering it for yourself. You're finding the reasoning behind it, and just think of like the goal that you want to do. Is it aligned with that? Is this moving me in the right direction? Is this making me a better person?
Yeah.
Those little things.
When you said that, something actually came to mind for me. So I'm sure a lot of people here know Hattie Boydell. She was a mentor of mine for quite a few years. And something that she used to say at all the time was get curious about yourself. And that is the number one thing that came to mind when you were speaking then. To break it down even further and to understand, like, how do I change my patterns and how do I understand what is going on in my brain and why I keep going around in circles? Just get curious about yourself. Start to question, why do you do what you do? What does that give you? Who are you around? How do they make you feel? Getting curious about yourself is the number one thing that you can do to start to understand more about you. Because as Anthony just said, and also as I say all the time, awareness is the first step to change. Hence why we do conversations like this, because this is probing those things for you to start the journey towards a better mental health, better mindset, better physical health. But just get curious about yourself. It's the number one thing that I think people don't do, and they're always going on autopilot over and over again, which is stopping them from being present with their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions. Now, with that, fitness is a massive part of what we're talking about here, and so is goals generally, because in order to achieve a goal, you do have to change, a pattern or a habit or start something new. Now, just to kind of break it down for our listeners as to what they can start to do to get themselves to a better place, Krystal, where do people start normally that you've noticed in terms of their fitness journeys? Have you noticed that when people are starting their fitness journeys, there's certain phrases that come up or certain things that people say that you believe stop them from doing the new thing?
I'll say, so when people know what they need to do, and then they have this list of 20 things that they want to change, and then it feeling too hard because they're trying to do too many things at once. So I tell people about habit stacking. So if there's something that they're already doing, and then if they, on the topic of mindfulness, if they want to start meditating, do it while you're brushing your teeth, because you're going to do that every day. And just starting with one thing at a time. So with one of my clients, she wanted to work on hitting steps and morning routine and nighttime routine and working out when she hadn't done these before. So we just broke it down and just started with steps and water. And then we're going to add in more later. So that's something that I see come up, is that clients try to do too many things at once and it feeling overwhelming.
The all or nothing mindset.
Yes.
That's exactly what that sounds like. So we've kind of covered how the brain works and those neural pathways that are, I guess, supporting people's current habits, regardless of if they deem them good or bad, negative or positive. And we've also now identified where people go wrong when they're trying to start new habits or patterns. And I do find that a lot of the time people are doing that. They're trying to do 1,000,001 things when they don't even have the first thing right. So what do you think is a good first step if somebody is about to start a fitness journey specifically, and they know that they've got these patterns or habits that are really, really ingrained that don't actually serve the journey they want to go on?
Get a coach.
I love it, and I hoped you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I hoped you were going to say that.
Honestly, by far, to anyone that definitely feels that way, anyone that wants to start their journey and doesn't know where, look to the people that are here to support you. Whether it's us or whether it is other coaches, there is so much support out there, and you don't have to do it alone. You actually get to be supported and educated on everything that you want to know. So
yeah. And this goes back to environment as well, which we were just talking about, because when I was saying about changing your physical environment, and I gave the Macca's analogy, which I am sure that some people thought I was picking them out, but I'm not, I swear.
Or maybe she is.
No. But I do know that those sorts of things can be really, really challenging for people. So with that being said, changing your environment doesn't have to be taking a different route on the way home or moving out of your house or breaking up with your partner or anything crazy. Sometimes it's just implementing a thing or a person into your world that is on the same wavelength as you or has knowledge or education you don't have. So with getting a coach, and we spoke about this on the last episode, being able to have somebody that can see what's going on from the outside looking in, and to then be able to understand what you need, where to go next, point you in the right direction, but also hold you to another level of not only accountability, but awareness on what you're currently doing. Because I can speak on experience working with clients. I've had clients that have always said that they were going to start on Monday, start next week, change the habit, etc. And then, 6 months later, they're still in coaching, which I love because I want to help them, but they're still doing the same things. And when they're not even aware they're doing it, that's really challenging. But I've been able to work with a lot of clients over the years where I've been able to say, hey, did you know that over the last couple of months, you've actually been doing the same pattern on repeat? And they go, oh shit. So getting a coach is obviously one way that you can work towards changing these habits and patterns. Do you guys have any other ways that you've thought of?
I definitely think there is other ways, although the investment I would say the investment of time that you're going to put in over a prolonged period to get the education, the knowledge, the experience that you could get from investing into a coach, it just far outweighs the time versus the investment that you get.
And from myself, like that first half marathon that I trained for, I was so overwhelmed with everything online and like what's the best way to do things. Man, I wish I just got a coach because from like some other events I did, like Olympic distance triathlon and marathon, where I got my coach, like learning so much and not just about like the training, but mindset and nutrition. It makes the world of difference. And again, you can get there so much faster if you have that support and someone that's got the education that you don't have.
Let's actually segue into that, because the word you used then was overwhelmed. And when people get overwhelmed on their journeys, or they get anxious, or they get unsure, and basically what can happen actually if you get overwhelmed, anxious and unsure is you don't get to think clearly. So when we are feeling a sense of stress or anxiety in the body, you go into fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode also can turn the thinking brain off. And without getting into too much of the science behind it, I want you guys to stay on this track with me. It can then be really hard to know what decision to make because you're not actually able to understand what to do in the first place. Analysis paralysis is a massive one. And when you said you got overwhelmed, just to go onto your story, you got overwhelmed with so much information. What did you do?
So I remember I watched the What the Health documentary and I went vegan without having any knowledge about protein, amino acids or anything. So I went anemic. And so I had to go on iron tablets. I also had amenorrhea for like 4 years.
So for those who don't know what amenorrhea is, it's a loss of period.
Yeah. So I actually had doctors tell me that to not run anymore because I had it's like osteoporosis, like osteopenia stage before osteoporosis in my back. And then that's when I started to learn more about like strength training. And then I had some friends that are PT, also Lauren, that I got programs off. And then started, training and learning more about the body.
Yeah, so you went from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So that's just the thing is when you're in a stress state, a fight or flight, you don't know what to do. People sometimes choose the wrong thing in Krystal's experience, or they don't do anything at all. Because when you are in a place of what do I do and you do nothing, this can also leave people feeling really frustrated, really anxious, overwhelmed, and they give up. So this again kind of moves itself back into the all or nothing mindset. So what is the definition, or your definition, Anthony, of an all or nothing mindset?
Perfect, yeah. For me personally, I think it's really hard for me to touch on because I really haven't had that mindset before. I would really say that what I believe it is really having a focus and goal in mind. And it is something that I've seen and heard of. However, I haven't exactly experienced it. So I believe that having a goal in mind and doing everything you believe is in your power to reach that goal. And as soon as one thing goes wrong, it's quitting.
I'll touch on this one. So,
Because I was about to say, oh boy, I've been there. So you've never been in an all or nothing mindset?
I personally can't say I've ever been in an all or nothing mindset.
I'm jealous. Are you jealous?
yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah.
So as you said, like, so we've got another analogy. So imagine like a car that's got 4 wheels, like one being your nutrition, one being your training, sleep, we'll say mindset or hydration in one of them. So you're on track, and then say you get takeaway, and so you have a blowout with your nutrition, and then you're like, oh, well, I've done that now. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to stay up late tonight. I'm not going to get much sleep. I'm not going to drink any water. So does it really make sense if you get one flat tire to then slash all the other ones?
I like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you're so right, because like I've actually been here before. I've been in an all or nothing mindset for years and years and years, and I've had to slowly bring myself out of it, because another thing to be very mindful of is, like, for me, my belief is that two things. To coach someone through it, you need to be able to go through it yourself to understand it. But then on the flip side of that, to coach someone through it, you need to know how to coach someone through it. So I'm so grateful that I've been there. But the all or nothing mindset has created some of the darkest times in my life, where I know how people feel, like running around in circles and feeling so lost and feeling like there's no point, because every time you have a blowout of some description, whether, as you said, it's the nutrition blowout on the tire, or it's the training, or you set these really unrealistic expectations of self, and the unrealistic expectations is that everything has to be perfect, or that you have to do it right and you can't skip a day or whatever. And then you do end up just going from one extreme to the other, because it's what it is. It's extremes. It's going to absolute extremes that end up getting you nowhere. So with the all or nothing mindset, that does come back down to your belief systems and things that you've been exposed to in the past. Am I right in saying that? So with that, how do we learn to slowly change a belief? Because I feel that everything we've spoken about today comes back to what you've learned and your beliefs.
Definitely. And I think that's why in particular has been so powerful, because the way that I look at life has really been from a mindset perspective. I feel like my body has always been to a standard of, I guess, healthiness or fitness. And I've always struggled with the mindset. So changing those beliefs, number one, awareness or acknowledgement, awareness that you have a belief that isn't currently serving you. So whether it's going down that slope in that same path over and over again. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely times of my life where I've tried to veer off that path and I end up falling back in, or those types of things. And I would say the awareness when you've fallen back in, or the awareness of, I would say the mindset around it, of not actually being like, oh, damn, I fell back in, then having to quit on it. It's the awareness that, oh, I fell back in this time. All right, what can I do to next time be better?
Paving that path again.
Try to stay out of it, yeah.
That's just what came to mind, paving that path again that you were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah. So, like, if you think of it, we've got that one very, very solid path. And each time you go off it, you're creating a new path. And you may end up with 1,000 different paths. But if you can do anything to stay off that one path that's not serving you, then that's a step forward. And no matter how many times you fall back into it, it's about, okay, reassessing rather than getting hard on yourself and being like, well, you know, this is never going to work, or I can't do it. And I think that belief right there, the I can't with whatever it is, that is something that is ingrained as a path in so many people, whether it has to do with fitness, mindset, anything at all. Like I would actually go to say that when I hear people say that they can't do something, my heart literally just like wants to shake them and tell them that they're capable of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I see when people like veer slightly off the path, they get so down on themselves and then they just get stuck in this feeling of guilt. So to those people, I just want to say like, yeah, just come at it at a point of awareness and what did you learn from it? Rather than just like stuck in that feeling guilty and then not doing anything about it.
Yeah, and being able to focus on the right things, which is moving forward no matter what, right? Now, I do just want to kind of move down the line of coaching in this space, because as we know, Within Reach is really starting to now move towards understanding the mind so that we can support our clients with this. Because what I know from speaking to other coaches in the industry, and what I've also seen, is many people going to coaches and the coaches don't have the knowledge or experience in this area to be able to help them. And it leaves clients frustrated and coaches frustrated because the coach is not understanding why this is happening with this client, and the client's not getting the understanding or education on why they can't do the thing that the coach is giving them. So I notice there's a massive gap in the market here. And I love that here at Within Reach, we are able to identify this and support people in moving forward with this. So not only do I recommend highly that if you are somebody right now who feels that this is something that they keep going round and round and round in circles with and it's not getting the support they need, that you work with someone that does have this knowledge and education. But outside of that, knowing as well as a coach that this is not the job role that you had signed up for. And I think this is where the gap in the market has really come into place, because fitness coaches, they didn't get into fitness to do mindset. And I can only speak on personal experience here, but for myself, when I decided to be an online coach or a fitness coach and I was a PT, I had no idea that this stuff was even part of the job. And I think any service-based industry where you're a one-on-one, you do end up becoming a little bit of like, I guess, a therapist or needing to connect with people on a deeper level. And where it can go really sour is where people are giving advice that they're not qualified to give. But in this space, a coach in the fitness space does really need to start to understand this if they want their clients to be successful. Have you guys noticed that this industry with online coaches, there's not really a whole lot of mindset going around?
Definitely, yeah. So there's a lot of mindfulness starting to come into more coaching, which is great, definitely. Mindfulness is just a way of positive reflection to the mind, I believe. Now, again, like the snowboard analogy, we're creating new pathways with mindfulness. And I think coming into the mindset work, using tools and resources that I've learned as well, getting the deeper layered stuff, finding that path that you keep going down and actually being able to actually really create a shift in that and be able to stay off that path is where mindset's so powerful. And what I've learned and being able to bring that to the personal training space has really created that shift, I feel.
Yeah, I guess in the industry I see that like you can go places for mindfulness or you can go places for like your training. But what I love about us is that we're bringing that all together. Because I know for me, why I love like half marathons, marathons specifically, is because of the mindset that it gives you. Like, yeah, I could talk forever about that. But so what I also love about being an online coach, and that we have our app where we can talk to clients anytime. So if they're having a bad day, I'm like, talk to me. Is that if they like missed a few gym sessions, I'm like, what's going on? So I think that's awesome that we're touching on all of it.
Yeah. And I want to see more of this in the industry. I really do. And I think it's so important. So if you're a coach right now listening to this and you haven't really explored this world before, highly recommend that you do, because you could be missing out on something really important for not only yourself and your business, but your clients as well. And if you're a client of a coach right now and you need that extra additional support, now you've got a couple of tools, or at least understanding on what could be going on in your world and why you're feeling this way. What I'd like to finish with is, let's actually give everybody some really solid tips to create a starting point for their mindset and to allow for them to start to take action on these patterns, beliefs, behaviors, environments that they're seeing happening on a regular basis.
I'll say journaling and asking yourself those questions. Or we have journaling question resources with our clients. You can even Google them, like reflective questions, because a lot of people haven't done that. A lot of people haven't just sat with themselves and asked them the questions like, what do I enjoy? Why do I do these things? So yeah, number one, just have some time with yourself and ask yourself some deep questions.
Yeah, definitely be curious with yourself. I would say there's a lot of practices out there, and you can try all the practices, but all that matters is the one that you actually stick to. So find something that really works for you, whether it be journaling, meditation, breath work, even.
And actually, sorry to cut you off there, Ant, but just for those who maybe don't even know what breath work is, do you want to just give a quick, like, what is that? How does that?
Yeah.
A quick spiel. Let's try.
Okay.
Because I know you can talk about it for ages. Because like with the tools, guys, it's easy to say like, do this, do that. But like, what is it? What do you do?
Yeah, perfect. I absolutely love breath work. The easiest way for me personally to explain breath work in a quick, short thing is basically we breathe every day and we aren't using our brain and body together to actually connect in with our deeper self. So when we actually in tune to our breath and our body, we can actually release some really cool chemicals which allow us to get into certain states where we can internalize on a deeper level, where we can ask ourselves those deeper questions, where everything sort of outside of self becomes a bit of a blur, where we're actually internal and we're having a self reflection and self internal processing of everything that we've gone through, everything that we've experienced, and allow ourselves to feel who we are within.
Yeah, that's huge, because your head and your heart and your body are so many different things, and we can live on like the outskirts of who we are as a person without venturing into who we are as a person. So I love that, and I think the breathwork side of things is great. Was there something else you were going to say on that?
Yeah, I just thought the biggest thing that I actually got pulled up on was like, as a human, we're always doing stuff. So even when, so my mentor really pulled me up on this, because I do a lot of things. So whenever I have a rest, in quotation marks, a rest, I would listen to a podcast. I would read. I would do breath work. I would meditate. I would do anything other than actually be with myself.
That's huge. It's like a distraction.
Yeah. So doing isn't the same thing as being. When we actually sit with ourselves and be ourselves, that's where you connect in and be like, cool, okay, actually feel what's happening.
Yeah.
Actually see the thoughts that I'm having.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it that way either. So I think, that's the first kind of step is awareness. And by listening to this podcast, you've just become really aware about what might be going on in your mind and why you are going around in circles and not following through. Now, as Krystal mentioned, journaling is a huge one. Anthony spoke about breath work, and then I definitely believe in both of those, plus meditation or stillness. And if you are not sure where to start, I think the best place you can start is just by allowing time to be with yourself, whatever that looks like for you, and just starting to get in tune, get curious about yourself, and start to almost embrace the feelings that may come with that, because stepping into a new version of you is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, but it's going to stop you from continuing to have that frustration, overwhelm, and anxiety that's stopping you from getting to where you want to be.
I would say another little practical tool on that is to like just set a timer of like 5 minutes to start with. So set your time for 5 minutes and just sit there and see what comes up.
Yeah.
You can focus on your breath. You can just like see what thought comes up and then let it go. So just starting small.
Yep.
Yeah.
Starting really small.
Use like the old fashioned like clicker timers too. Like literally put your phone in a different room. Like it doesn't actually have to be an old clicker.
I was like, I don't have one of those.
I don't even know what that looks like.
Just get like something that isn't your phone to time yourself, because I know how many people I've recommended to try that sort of thing, or especially some of the past clients I've had to try that sort of thing, and the distraction or the thought process of grabbing the phone, seeing what time it is, and then all of a sudden you're distracted again.
Yeah, very true.
Like think of how many times you grab your phone a day.
I don't want to.
I looked at my screen time the other day. It was horrifying.
Do you know what? I know this is going completely off topic. But do you know the thing that I can't stand is, because obviously as an online coach, we do so much work online, and I'll go to pick up my phone to do a work-related task, and 10 minutes later, I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I'm like, what was I supposed to be doing?
That happens to me all too often. And now I've got like multiple Instagram accounts, and I've just turned off my notifications. So I'm like, it's too much.
Oh gosh. But anyway, you opened up a can of worms there.
I did.
But yeah, I think what we've been able to do today is really highlight what is going on in your mind, how that works. And then we've been able to segue into some practical tools that you can utilize to start that journey. And I think the most important thing to remember is to be patient with yourself and to let yourself go through this stage, because when you are becoming someone you're not yet and you are trying to do something you haven't done before, it can be really easy to focus on the end result. But the journey along the way is going to uncover a lot for you that you didn't already know, and you're probably going to learn a lot of lessons. So guys, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned something too.
Definitely.
And we're excited for next week.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
See you then.